Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Going to spend some time with Emma Fauss, and she's with a company called Medical Informatics Corporation, and you're corporately located out of Houston.
We are. We're based right next to the Texas Medical Center.
You guys, you know, except for the medical part, which of course we're the medical capital of the world, healthcare capital of the world, you guys kind of reek of something out of Silicon Valley. You know, when I look at your website and look at your names and, you know, in terms of offices and experience. And so, can you explain that? Is that part of an intentional culture?
So we are a startup company. We've been incorporated since 2010. We actually relocated to Houston in 2011 so we could be next to the Texas Medical Center. So we're not originally from Texas, but we love Texas.
Where are you originally from?
Virginia.
Virginia.
Actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so we basically bring data analytics to the patient's bedside where we can help improve patient experience and reduce healthcare costs. Yes,
and I see a whole, with the two, I'm assuming, original people, you and Craig Lesson?
Craig and I are the co-founders of the company.
You both have that VA background, that UVA background, so that's kind of cool.
We both did our PhDs at University of Virginia.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And what was yours in, by the way? It looks like engineering.
It was
engineering.
Electrical engineering, electrical and computer engineering.
And he apparently is a mechanical.
Chemical engineer.
So you both are like diabolical mad scientists.
Well, a little bit, but we're a little bit of odd ducks. We have a very diverse background. I have more of an art background, a little bit of risk analysis experience, and venture capital. And since 2010, I've been working on the startup. And Craig, he does a little bit of everything. He's actually a professor of medicine at Baylor College of Medicine.
Yes, I see
that.
And
works with Texas Children's Hospitals to develop predictive algorithms of disease.
And I see he did a TED Talk.
He did.
Where did he do a TED Talk at?
Here in Houston, TEDx Talk.
How often do they do those?
They usually have one per year, the sort of conference in Houston.
When do they do that?
It's been varying year to year what date, but it's usually in the fall. It's a really fantastic
I want to do a
event.
TED Talk,
oh,
actually.
You totally should.
I really do. Do you know who I need to contact?
I do know who you
Okay, we'll talk about that later. I totally want to do a TED Talk. I have one on why we believe what we believe.
That's an interesting topic.
Because, you see, we're so, and it's funny because I actually believe in absolute truth, because of my theological, backgrounds. But the reality is that everything is built around our culture, our background, even our personality type, our 16 personality types.
And how we're trained.
And how we're trained. Exactly right.
In medicine, we see that a lot. As a, innovative company coming into healthcare, what you have to often do is bridge the gap across many different disciplines. Like physicians are often trained to make snap judgments and be, very proficient in treating sick patients. And if they have to change treatment in a few seconds, they can do that and adapt. Whereas something like intuitively, but an engineer often has to build a plan, they execute, they account for risks, and if they encounter a hurdle, they often slightly pivot their path. So
after all, a medical doctor is only going to kill one, an engineer could kill thousands.
Well, let's hope not.
Right. But even in that whole same vein, well, you and I could geek out for hours, so you do need to talk about your company at some point. We have some extra time, so we're going to go a little longer than we normally will. I can already see that. But like an OD versus an MD, the way they would tactically do things. They're both recognized as medical doctors, and yet their whole tactical approach are different from one another. It's fascinating.
So building innovative tools and analytics tools in this space can actually be very challenging. Just because you have to bridge so many different backgrounds to create novel analytic solutions. And so what we're actually focused on right now is the area of alarm management and helping hospitals reduce alarm fatigue.
Nice segue of getting back to what we were actually talking about. Nice job. I like that. And you said you never did radio before. You sound like someone who has. In fact, you sound like the host at this point. So let's talk a little bit about that. First of all, talk a little bit about the pre-existing paradigm that existed in terms of how the medical field conducted itself in your domain area and how you are creating a paradigm shift. That's what new companies, particularly new startups, are trying to do.
Yeah, so alarm fatigue has actually been quite big in the business right now. You see a lot of organizations like Joint Commission and ECRI Institute going out there and saying alarm fatigue is a national patient safety issue.
Tell us exactly what alarm fatigue is.
Okay, alarm fatigue is if you or any of your loved ones have been to an ICU recently, one of the first things you'll notice is that there's a constant stream of alarms. In fact, you can see a nurse, like a typical nurse has a 12-hour shift. She'll have up to 1,000 alarms that are coming to her in that 12-hour period.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and you can imagine that from that experience, either as the patient or the nurse or the care provider, you're constantly overwhelmed with this noise, and it becomes background noise. And you can miss alarms, you can miss important alarms, not because you're lazy, not because you're not trying to pay attention, but because simply there's this onslaught of constant noise. And it creates a very dangerous situation.
Are the alarms all similar?
They're different noises based on different priorities, but you have tons of different machines. Ever since the 1940s, when you started to see ventilators and cardiac heart monitors and things like that, there's been more and more devices at the patient's bedside in these intensive care units. And each of those devices has a variety of different alarms that they can emit. And, when we talk about perception, how many different sounds can an individual human perceive, and understand the difference of just in general training? And so anyway,
I would assume many of them tune out most of the alarms, except for the ones that are really alarming. You know what I'm saying? Like someone's flatlining or something like that.
The absolutely critical alarms, like those are actually
but
very
the only
apparent.
things they're hearing. Are actually listening for, and the rest is like, it's not important. It's not important. They kind of create a filter, right?
They do create a filter, right? Just like you would do any white noise in the background. And that's not to say that they are not cognizant and they don't try to get to their patients, because they really do care. But when there's statistics out there that show 95 to 99% of those alarms are nuisance alarms. In other words, non-actionable. And so really what we've done from a big data analytics, perspective is we've come in there, we're tapping into data streams and device data that has typically not been accessed before and stored for long periods of time. And we're able to transition that raw data into actionable information to the hospital to say, this is actually how you can reduce those nuisance alarms. Here's how you should set your limits on your devices. Here's how you can introduce effective change within the workflow of the different care providers to actually get meaningful alarms to those care providers.
Okay, so tell us what that looks like.
Yeah, what that looks like is we offer a variety of services and software solutions, because we're a software company. And so we have some analytics reports that basically prescribe to the hospital what they can do to improve their alarms. And then we have software solutions that help different decision makers answer questions. Like we have dashboards that give real-time awareness of alarm situations across an organization for decision makers. We have even patient-specific tools that calculate analytics on a per-patient basis to help the physician or the care provider understand how those alarms should be set for that patient. And so it's where we really excel is in that concept of doing real-time analytics for individual patients at the bedside to make meaningful change and improvement in their care.
So all the alarms, they're from machines, right?
Yep, they're from machines.
And so all of these autonomous machines by various companies are creating various alarms, none of which have any complement to any other machine per se.
A lot of them are traditionally non-networked and non-integrated. So you'll have the vent going off, and sometimes the vent's not even connected to the internal paging system. So you'll have vents going off in a room, and if the door's shut, you can't hear them, right?
Yes.
And it's
so you're trying to synchronize all of that and trying to make it into a more orderly model. And I say trying, I'm assuming you're already doing it.
Oh, yeah, we're already doing it. Our largest partner and the place we love to be is Texas Children's Hospital. They are really innovatives in trying to improve care, and we actually have been working with them since 2011. They're one of the big reasons we moved out to Texas. And we've been helping to reduce alarms in their units so that they can have quieter ICUs.
Yes. So how many alarms do they hear an hour in your model?
So currently right now...
From 100 versus 2...
Per hour is a little bit hard in terms of...
Or in a 12-hour shift.
A 12-hour shift, we've seen, reductions of, upwards of 25% for one particular type of alarm that we focused on. We've gone from, I'll give you an example, like SpO2 probes, which are known to be like some of the worst alarms out there because they jitter and they chat all the time. We've gone from seeing like 80 alarms in a shift to, 70 alarms per shift. And it doesn't seem like huge strides, but we're making essentially very measured and targeted approaches so we don't introduce risk to the patient, because that's really what it's about. It's about reducing the risk of too many alarms out there that are non-actionable and getting to the actionable alarms.
Yeah, stop the cry wolves, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, we all know what that does.
Yeah.
So, all right, very interesting. And you of course, have, I guess you could say, groups that you serve beyond the alarm committees, the researchers, the administrators, but it's really obviously in the hospital community. That is that's who your primary client is.
We work directly with hospitals, and we also work with a lot of the other vendors that are out there that are helping to, introduce secondary notification technologies like smartphones in hospitals. Mm-hmm. So we integrate with them and help provide, again, that actionable information to the care provider.
Emma Fauss, she is with Medical Informatics Corporation.
Yeah, and you can find us at endalarmfatigue.com.
Endalarmfatigue.com. Sounds like a good idea. All right, when we come back tomorrow, much more for you. Thanks for being with us. And look forward to being with you. To listener about it, want to remind you, best content here shows up over there at usdailyreview.com. Have a great day. Spend it right here on this station.